Think of that chair.
Okay, we're discussing the Mizbeach. We saw there were changes to the Mizbeach. We saw they built on the southwest, they put holes that it should go through the Mizbeach. And today we're going to continue the discussion of Mizbeach, and I'll go off topic a little bit for a nice drasha. So we're up to Samich Beis Amid Aleph. We're up to the top line. I'm Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, the fact that they made changes to the Mizbeach, Lav Hainu Ditnan, is that not what we learned? The Pasuk says, Vayachinu HaMizbeach al Mechonaisav, and they literally prepared the Mizbeach al Mechonaisav on its foundation. In other words, the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah were able to go ahead and do something that Shlomo wasn't able to do. Right? V'ksiv hakol b'ksav yad Hashem alai haskil. This is the pasuk that David tells Shlomo all the dimensions of the Beis Hamikdash were given exact. So how's it possible for the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah to go ahead and make changes to the Mizbeach? We said they made changes, as we're going to see in a second. Says the Gemara, Elom Rabbi Yosef, Kroi Ashkech, the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, they found the pasuk, V'darash, and they dashed in the pasuk. What did they dash? What pasuk did they found? Vayom David, Zehu Beis Hashem Elikim, V'zem Mizbeach Lo'oila Yisrael. Ki bias, ma bias or base shishim ama, just like the Beis Hamikdash, or the first Beis Hamikdash was shishim ama. Af mizbeach shishim ama. So to the mizbeach was what? Was shishim ama. So in other words, it could be shishim ama, but in fact it wasn't. If you look at Rashi, fellas, Rashi says, Elom Rabbi Yosef Kro Ashke B'Dorish Shnemar LeDavid Shishim ama b'Makom HaMizbeach u'Shlomo lo yehaven l'Drosho. Shlomo did not understand the darshan. V'heim the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah darshua. V'osifu alav, and they added on to it. Lefi had tzarich, whatever's necessary. U'leshishim ama lo yitzruchu. They never needed 60. Darminu lekamon midas orcha v'rachba b'kamaslei ema akvin. The size of the mizbeach, the length and the size is not ma'akiv. The mokum ha-mizbeach is ma'akiv. You need an exact place for it, but the shear is not ma'akiv. So, in other words, they could have expanded up to 60, but in fact they did not. They could have expanded up to 60, but in fact they did not. Now, Bishlema, this is a fascinating Gemara, guys. Bishlema, this is speaking about the Bayesheni, when they're oiler from Bavel. Bishlema, Bayes min karot surasoi. They were able to recognize the tsura, in other words, after its destruction, they were able to see which part was the Heichel, which part was the Kodesh. In other words, they were able to go ahead and ascertain Heichel and Kodesh are the same. I mean, the Ulam, they're able to figure out the wall structure. El Mizbeach min Yodai. The Mizbeach, which was made of Avonim, Hastus, fellas, it wasn't a foundation in the ground. It was above the ground, right? So if that was destroyed, then how could they know the Makam HaMizbeach? Now, it's important to know the Makam HaMizbeach. Okay, guys, see this Makam HaMizbeach, Mekomam Mechuvam B'Yoser. You see that? Okay, this is base and base Bechira halacha base. State HaMizbeach Mekomam Mechuvam B'Yoser. The place of Mizbeach was very exact. Vein Mishan Loisleimim Koimer LaOilam. You cannot change it. Shneimar Zem Mizbeach LaOilam Yisrael. Uve Migdash, or the Gerse Uve Mizbeach Nekad Yitzchak Avinu. Yitzchak was Akkad, he was bound there. Shnemar, Lech L'chol Eretz HaMaria, V'nemar, B'divrei Yomim, V'yach L'shlomer Libnos Beis Hashem B'Yushalayim, B'har Maria, Asher Nir L'David Avihu, Asher Heichin B'Mokem David B'Gorin Arav Nahayivusi. David, in the last Shmuel Beis, the last Perik, he buys this area, the threshing floor, from a person named Aravna. Mesoris B'Yad HaKol, says the Rambam, the Messiah in the hands of everybody. The place where David and Shlom were built the Mizbeach, Bigarin Aravna, Hu HaMakom Shebana BaAvram Mizbeach. That's the same place that Avram built the Mizbeach. Ve'okalav Yitzchak, and he put Yitzchak. He bound Yitzchak there. Hu HaMakom Shebana BaNoach. That's the place that Noach built the Mizbeach. Kishiyatzim and Ateva. V'Hu Mizbeach, and that's the Mizbeach. What does that say? For whom Mizbeach shehikriv alav Kayin vehevel. It's the same Mizbeach that Kayin and Hevel brought Kemanas on. Actually, uboy hikriv adam Rishon, and Adam Rishon was makriv there. Korban Kishanivra, when he was created, and in fact, in Misham Nivra, the pasuk says that he was created from Makam Ha'adama. Mizbeach Adama, Adam was created. Vayitza Hashem Elokim es Adam min Ha'adama. Rashi brings Ha'adama, the Adama of the Makam Mizbeach, that is Shav Kapara. Amr Chachamim Adam min Makam Kapara say Nivra. Adam was created from the Makam of his Kapara. So this is you. This is it's not some any place. This is a unique place. Now, how did they know this place? In other words, you see that you look at the world as a jigsaw puzzle, and in this one piece that fits in the whole circumference of the world exactly over here. It's kind of incredible. How they know that? How in the world do they know that? The Gemara gives few fascinating answers. Let's see. So Malcolm is Be'ach Min Yoda. Where in fact did they know that from? Okay. Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, Roa Mizbeach Bonoi, they saw a built Mizbeach, Umichael Asara Gadol Oimed, and Michael the Sarah Gadol, Makriv Olav. Says the Marsha, fellas, everything in this world has its contemporary in the next, has parallel in the next. Marsha says they looked in the next world and they were able to see the exact place where Michael was being Makriv Kabbanis, and then they were able to take that and transpose it down over here. It's not pshat they were looking over here and seeing it. They were looking over there because he's not being makriv here, he's being makriv there, and they were able to transpose it here. That's one pshat. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Amar, Afarish shel Yitzchak roi munach boisei makom. They saw the afer of Yitzchak munach in this place. We'll get back to that in a second. They saw the dust of the ashes of Yitzchak in this place. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmeni Amar, Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmeni is of the opinion, is Mikola Bayis Kuloi Herichu Reach Getaires. From every other place, they were able to smell the smell of the Getaires. Misham, in this area, Hiriach Reach Eivarim. They spelled what? The Reach of the Eivarim. So we have three pshatim. Either they saw the Malach Michael, they smelled it, or they saw the Efer of Yitzchak. Now, what do you mean you saw the Efer of Yitzchak? Hey, Yitzchak was not burnt. Yitzchak was not burnt. So it's really interesting. And I'll bring you even a chazal, guys. This is a Toras Kahanim. Listen to this Toras Kahanim. You don't have to listen to it. You can see it. I put it over here for you. You see a pasuk? Okay, pasuk man based in the Techacha. There's a Charti Esprisi Yaakov, and I'll remember the bris of Yaakov. V'af Esprisi Yitzchak. V'af Esprisi Avram Eskar. So guys, look at the pasuk. By Yaakov it says Lashon Sechira. By Avram it says Lashon Sechira. By Yitzchak it doesn't say the Lashon of Sechira. Look at this Toras Kahanim. Esprisi Yitzchak. Lama nema ba'Avram v'Yaakov Sechira. Ubi Yitzchak lo nema Sechira. Elaroyin es afarai. They saw his afer. Ki'ilu hu tzavar al gabi mizbeach. If it was intact on the mizbeach. Pirish, that the Akedah is in front of a Kodesh Baruch Hu the whole time. Sechira is something that you have to remember. But right now, you don't have to remember Eliezer's throne in front of you. Yeah, a few years from now, Efsha, right? But right now, ich bin du, right? Ich bin du. But you see the Efer, Memele, you don't have to remember it. But notice the Lashon, Afaroi, the same thing. They saw the Efer of Yitzchak. So what's the Hezbollah? So in last week's Parsha, Parshas Vayera, says something geschmack. Vayikra love Malach Hashem l'Shemayim. Vayema Avram Vayema Ineni. Vayema Tishlach Yodcha Lenar V'Atas Le'Uma Ki Ato Yodati Ki Yireh L'Kim Ata V'Chasachta Es Minchas Yechidcha Mimeni. Vayisa Avram Es Einov Vayar V'Hinei Ayel Achar Nechaz Baspach B'Karnov. Right. Vayelech Avram Vayikach Es Ayel Vayalei L'Oila Tachas Bino. Is there a difference, girls? I'm going back to teaching the Akedah. So, is there a difference between the lashon of in place of or instead of? Instead of means, instead of this, I'm putting this. In place of means, no. In place of means, this is here, I'm just switching it around. The Hezbollah is, fellas, Yitzchak was willing to be brought as a carbon. Avram was willing to bring him as a carbon. Achshava, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitzvah machshava kemaisa. It's if he was brought mamish. It was tachas, guys. It was tachas. You see from Chazal, this Gemara and that. It's mamish what? The Afer of Yitzchak. It was Yitzchak. Yitzchak was a carbon. He was the other Tamima. He couldn't leave Eretz Yisrael. He was brought as a carbon. Hashem didn't allow it. That's a different cheshbon. But in terms of Avram willing to give and Yitzchak willing to give his nefesh over, it all was given. That's the Lashon, guys, tachas. Very geschmack, we can explain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu views the ashes of this ayil not as if it's an ayil. It's tachas Yitzchak. He views it about not instead of Yitzchak, but in place of Yitzchak. He mamish views it as Yitzchak. I think it's a beautiful pshat. I saw it somewhere. I don't remember. I wish I could say it b'shem Amro. It's not my own. But the very geschmack pshat to explain that they saw it. Guys, lahalacha. You're ascertaining the makam mizbeach that's mechufim b'yoseh. Anshe knesset agdoila ro afarish Yitzchak munach b'yoseh shel makam. It's not a Muslim, guys. They taka saw the Efer of Yitzchak, and it's called the Efer of Yitzchak. Gevalka b'shat. Amar Rav Chana Amar Rav Yochanan. Shloisha neviim alu imahim en agdoila. Chagei Zechariah Malachi. Echad shehei lehem al mizbeach. One was made that what on the mizbeach, the size of the mizbeach. The Echad shehei lehem al makam mizbeach. One that testified exactly where the mizbeach was. In other words, they extended it, and the one was testified where exactly it was located. The Echad shehei lehem shemakriven alpha pi shem bias. And one that said that kedusha rishona kitchel l'shaita for kitchel l'asad lavai, and therefore they were able to bring karbanis even though the Beis Hamikdash wasn't rebuilt. Tana Reb Lezmi Yaakov Aimer, Shleish Neviim Alu Imahem and Agoyla, Echad Shehei Lehem Al Mizbeach Val Makam Mizbeach. But the first man the Omer held is two separate things. Reb Lezmi Yaakov is holding as one thing, right? The Makam Mizbeach and the Mizbeach itself. Ve'echad Shehei Lehem Shemakrivim Al Pish Ein Bias. And the third, Ve'echad Shehei Lehem Al Torah Shenichtav Ba'ashuris. There were two different kasav, guys. There was Ivri and there was Ashuris. What we have is Ashuris. Ivri, as you ever saw in the old coins, that they look like hieroglyphics almost, right? So this is Ashuris. Tanrabanan. Keren, again, going over the Yisoidus of Mizbeach, I'm not excusing the pun. Keren v'kevesh v'yisoid v'rivua. The kevesh is the ramp. The yisoid, which we know on the northern and western side, v'rivua, and the fact that it had to be squared, ma'akvin. That is ma'akiv. Midas orchay, midas rachay, midas kamasa, which we just quoted in Rashi, its length and its width and its height, right? Ain't ma'akvin. It's not ma'akvin. And that's, again, it has to be in the makam mizbeach. It doesn't have to take up the whole mizbeach. It has to be makam mizbeach, right? Okay. Minani mili. I was thinking, guys, we had the Gemara. Remember, we said that if you bring it underneath the mizbeach, we said they made the mizbeach shorter, and you bring it over there, it wouldn't work, right? Right. So you see that what hypothetically it wasn't like the mizbeach wasn't there because you needed the spot. It's very good shmakaraya, right? That it's not ma'akiv. Now, Minani Mili, how do we know these things are not ma'akiv? Because it says hamizbeach by all of them. Rav Huna Makra, hamizbeach, kol makom shneim hamizbeach, v'mizbeach la'akiv. So it says by the keren hamizbeach, it says by the kevesh hamizbeach, and by Yisrael it says hamizbeach, and Revuah it says hamizbeach. El Mayata Kiyar LeRebbi, the Kiyar around the mizbeach, fellas. There was the Kiyar here is not the Kiyar. It's on the Mizbeach of Nechoshes. There were tsuras, there were paintings, like carvings. And it says HaMizbeach over there. So you're telling me that would be Ma'akiv? V'soivev Rabbi Yossi. And Rabbi Yossi says that was a soivev. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. Hachanami the Ma'akiv, D'chsiv. V'nasata oisoi tachas karkov. And I put this tachas the karkov, HaMizbeach, milmata. And it says, B'tanya Eze Charkov, Rabbi Yomi Zekiyar, Rabbi Yossi Yehuda Soivev. So according to you, that anytime it says Hamizbeach, it's Ma'akev, then this Karkov should be Ma'akev, whether it's the, according to Rabbi, it's Siyurim, or rather, according to Rabbi Yossi Yehuda, it's the Soivev, it should be Ma'akev. When he answers, then you're right, it is. Taket is Ma'akev. It says Hamizbeach, it's Ma'akev. The Tanya, Oisa Hayoim, that day, Nifkama Keren Mizbeach. There was the Mizbeach was Nifkam. Veiviu bul shel melech. They put a fistful of salt. V'sat muha. What happened was, guys, do you remember that Tzedaikim held? They didn't hold of Nisach Hamayim because it's stated in the Torah. So the Gemara in Sukkah tells us what did they do? The Tzedaikim, the kind, they went ahead and he poured it on the ground right in front of it. He didn't put it on the southwest. He didn't put it there. He threw it on the ground. What happened? They started pelting him with esrogim. They threw in the esrogim and they went nifkam the mizbeach. It's given a shredder esrog. I took a head and took a piece of the mizbeach off. So what did they do? Not that it would make it kosher lavoida, el shlayira mizbeach pogum. It shouldn't be pogum. Shekom mizbeach shein like keren v'kevesh v'yisod revu apostle. So since they took a piece off the mizbeach, it was the keren. You see, it's puzzle. That's the raya. Rabbi Yosef of Yehuda oimer af hasoivev. Even the soivev, this raya that even the soivev, which was the charkov, it was ma'akev. Tanrabanan. Ezo charkiv. We just said this machlokes. Being keren lekeren, it's the place that's between the horns. Now, what you just told me, the charkiv, guys, is something on the side. It's either the soivev or it's pictures on the side. Now you're telling me it's on top, right? Makam hilach raglei kahanim. Ama atu ama. Atu akanon and beikeren lekeren. Abiyasi, the kahanim didn't walk between each horn. They walked am in front of the horns. Ela ema umakam hilach raglei kahanim. Ama. I said the charkiv is the place where the kahanim would walk. Ivoksiv tachas charkuvay milmata at chetzyav. So you see that it's not on top of the Mizbeach, rather it's on the sides of the Mizbeach, fellas. It's not on top of the Mizbeach, it's on sides of the Mizbeach. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, Trei Have, there were two charkovs. Chad Lenoi, one was made for beauty, the pictures or the Soivev. Chad Lekahanim Shaloi Nishtarku. And one was made, guys, there was blood up there, the Kahanim shouldn't slip. So there was an area called the Charkov. Interesting, there was two. One on top, on the Mizbeach, they shouldn't slip, and one on the side. Machlokes, what the one on the side is. Midas Archa, Midas Barcha, Midas Kamasa Ema Akvin. They're not Akvin. Amrav money. Ubavad Shalo Yichasenu Mizbeach Sha'asa Moshe. It should be less. In other words, you could diminish it, but it should be less than the 5 amas of Moshe. Moshe said the Mizbeach was 5 amas by 5 amas. The Kama, how much? Rabbi Yosef Amma. Said Rabbi Yosef an Amma. Machku Aleha. They began laughing. Chamesh Amas Aruch, Chamesh Amas Reich was 5 by 5. Ravua, it was squared 5 by 5. And you say it's one Rabbi Yosef? Yeah, Mizbeach. Amalei Abaya. Dilma Mokai Maracha Kamamar. Maybe he was speaking about the Mokai Maracha. Guys, we said the Keren takes away 1, and the Mokai Raglihak take away 1, right? So you have 2 on each side. 2 on each side is 4. So that leaves Mizbeach of 5, leaves you 1. So maybe when Rabbi Yosef said 1, he was speaking about the Mokai Hamaracha. So Amalei Rabbi Yosef said, Mar the Gavra Rabbahu, you Mar, that's a Gavra Rabba, Yoda my Kamina. Right? You know what I was talking about. And Rabbi is going to love this. Kori Alayu, Rabbi Yosef called on these people who didn't understand him, B'nai Keturah. He called them B'nai Keturah. Can't make it up. Why do you call them B'nai Keturah? Look at Rashi. B'nai Keturah, right? B'nai Avram Atem, you're the sons of Avram. Avaloi kizera Yitzchak v'Yaakov. Your midas are not like the zera Yitzchak v'Yaakov. That you would laugh at me, right? You'd laugh at me. You're not exemplifying the midas of Yisrael. B'nai Achte de Rav Tarfin, the sons of the sister of Rav Tarfin, have Yasve Kamei de Rav Tarfin. And the Gersa is, look at the Shitum Kubet says, Vayhavi Amru Midi. No, they were sitting in front of him, and they were silent. They weren't engaging in any halachic discourse whatsoever. So Pasach v'Amar, Rav Yosef, Rav Tarfin opened up and he said, V'Yosef Avram, v'yikach Isha, u'shmo Yechani. And Avram went ahead and he took an Isha, and the name was Yechani. So Amalei, so they told him Keturah Ksiv, right? It doesn't say Yochani, it says he took a wife named Keturah. So Kari Aleim B'nai Keturah, he called him B'nai Keturah. Okay, just a little play on words. Amar Abaya Barhuna, Amar Rab, Chama Bar Goya. Gezirin, the Gezirin, Sha'asa Moshe, the Gezirin that they would bring in the morning, right? The Gezirin in the afternoon, they would bring these logs of wood, these pieces of wood. Sha'asa Moshe, Archin Amma v'Roich Ben Amma. The length was an Amma and the width was an Amma. V'oivav, and their thickness is kemachat gud shasa. Like if you go ahead, you would take something you want to level off a saw, you would take it, so it's very, very thin. Rav Yirmiyah said, Rav Yirmiyah, right, these gezirim that you measured by Amma Geduma, you measured them in an Amma Geduma in a short Amma, not a big, no, it's five tvachim rather than six. Rav Yosef said, Falav Haina de Tanya, Ala Eitzim Asher Ala Eish Asher Al Mizbeach, Shlayia Eitzim Yoitzim in Mizbeach Klum. In other words, it could have been bigger, as long as it didn't go off the Mizbeach, it was fine. So they didn't have to be five, it could have been six. Tan Hasam. Kevesh Haisel Droimish Al Mizbeach. There was a kevesh in the south of the Mizbeach. That's the picture we always have. Oirich Shloishim Shnayim Al Roichiv Shnei Masa. It was 32 amis long and it was 16 amis wide. It was 32 by 16. Minani Mili. How do we know those dimensions? Amrafuna Makra B'Shachrei Soil Yerech HaMizbeach Tzfayna Sheyerech B'Tzafayin Upanav B'Dar. How do you know it was in the south? He's not asking the dimensions, fellas. Excuse me. How do you know the kevesh was in the south rather than the north? How do you know the kevesh was in the south rather than the north? And he's saying you should sech it tzefayna she yerech b'tzafon upanav b'darim. The yerech guys, touch the yerech as the thighs, fellas. View the mizbeach as a person. So if the yerech, the thighs are in the north, so the person's face is going to be in the south. We're viewing a person as a person lying down, or as a person lying down. Maybe he's sitting. Maybe he's sitting, so his yerech is in Safain and his vad his panav is in Safain. So Amarava, Rami Gavra Aape. Says Rava, place the person on his face. In other words, like I just mentioned, that his face should be in the south because his feet are in the north. Amayabaya Adarabba, Taritz V'Yosef Gavra, go ahead and shtel back. Go ahead and it should be totally in the north. Amalei Ruvua Ksiv. It says the lashon word of Ruvua, and it's mashma Ruvua can mean like ravutz. That's mash. He could be what? He could be lying down. In other words, ravutz means like lying down. I need that Ruvua not to tell me that he's lying down, but I need to tell me that the mizbeach should be a square and not an oval. And for Gemara, mikasiv miruba, it doesn't say miruba, that it's mashma that it has to be squared. It says Ruvua. It says Ruvua, which is mashma lying down and not standing up. That it says Ruvua, like it's lashon ravitza, miksiv ravutz. It doesn't say ravutz. So Amalei Ruvua ksiv the mashma hachi mashma hachi. Ruvua is mashma what? It's mashma squared and it's also mashma lying down. Betanya Messiah, and I have a brayso that is a raya to Rava that it was in the south. Mehacha the Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says it says by Mizbeach of Yecheskel Uma'alei Sehu Pinois Kodim, and it's steps. Pinois Kodim. When you would turn to the east. Kalpinish at the point Ella El Mizrach. So guys, look, if you're going up from my beard is south and my head is north, so when you're going up, you're turning to the right, you're turning to the east. So therefore, if it was in the north, you'd be turning to the west, right? Here you're turning to the east. Right? Maybe the pasuk means when you go up the kevesh, you should turning right to the west. So it's more it does that you should put right because it doesn't make sense that you should be turning to the left. So the kefis is soften, guys, right? Look, if I'm in the north, right, guys, I'm in the north, and I'm going this way, so then my left side, I'm going this way, so the left side is towards the west, right? If that makes sense, right? You're going this way, right? And the left is going to be towards the west. Rabbi Avi, I'm sorry if this is so. But you got it, right? If you're going this way, you're turning to you smile. Maybe it should be what? The aim is smile in Mizrach. Because why? The Tani Rami by Yecheskel, it says by the Yam Shel Shloima. Shloima made this basin. What does it about the Yam Shel Shloima? It says the Yam Shel Shloima, Aymin Ashneim Asa Bakar. It was standing on 12 bakar. So you had 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Shloisha poinim tzefaina, 3 were to the north. Shloishim poinim yama, 3 were to the west. Shleisha panim negba, 3 to the south. Ushlein shapanim mizracha. So you see directional, you're going out, you're going counterclockwise. Okay. Kol pinashat the poina la ella derech yamin la mizrach, towards the east and not the west. Not we don't need the left to the west. We need the east, the right to the west. How can you learn from there? I need it for myself just to explain it. Says the Gemara, Imkain, it's just point him once, point him lami. Why does that say point him each time? It's to teach me that what called pinish at the poina ain't the ella yamin to the mizrach. So now we know it's in the south. And when you go up, guys, the first place you're going to meet this is southeast, northeast, northwest, and southwest, right? And in the southwest, and we're going to, Bez Hashem, the rest of them today and tomorrow, we're going to see different halachas about certain corners of the Mizbech. Very nice Gemara. You know what nice Gemara means? It's not, you can just sit and listen. You don't have to think too much. Right? Shol Rabbi Shimon ben Yosi Lakunya es Rabbi Yosi. He asked him the following question. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yosi ben Lakunya asked Rabbi Yosi the following question. Oy Mahay Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Avir yesh ben kevesh lemizbeach. There was an avir. There was an airspace between the kevesh and the mizbeach. In other words, when it went up, it didn't touch the mizbeach. Amaloi, Rabbi Yossi said, you're asking like a question. Don't you agree with that? But like it says, "Vasisa oilesecha habasa v'hadam." You should make your oila basar and dam, and we make a hekesh to basar and dam. Ma dam bizrika. The kohen by the oila guys, he would stand on the ground with a kli. He'd spread on the northeast and then the southwest. But he stood in other words, it wasn't shayfech. He threw it, so it was in the ear to mizbeach. Af basa, when it's describing throwing the basar onto the maracha, it means what? That there was an airspace. So now, meaning I'm throwing it from the kevesh, and there's an airspace between the kevesh and the mizbeach, and it's going transgressing that airspace. It's going over the airspace, bizrika. So Amaloi, Shani Oimer. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yosi said to Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Shimon said to Rabbi Yosi, Shani Oimer, I say, Oimid bitzad ma'aracha. Maybe it means he stood on the tzad of ma'aracha, v'zayrik. In other words, it's possible that the kevesh touched the mizbeach, and if the whole raya is this rika, maybe he's on the mizbeach with the basar, and he threw it into the air onto the ma'aracha. So Rabbi Yosi said it's not possible to say that. When he's throwing it onto maracha, that it seems the whole maracha wasn't lit up at once. Let's say this part was lit and this part wasn't. He can't go ahead and go throw it on the lit part because he can get burnt. So he puts it on what? The non-lit part. I would say maracha deluka huzayrik. He would go ahead and he would he'd have to throw it on the right, and if that's the case, you would not need what the pasuk to tell me that. Okay, you would not need the pasuk to tell me, guys, he's throwing from the side, he's throwing it into the fire, and obviously he can't put it on the fire because he get burnt. So it must be throwing it over the part that's not burnt into the part that's burnt, and therefore you would not need the pasuk. Ella, when you have the pasuk, it must be that he doesn't do that. Says the Gemara, Hasam mishum d'layefshar. Over there, when he's standing on the side of the maracha, it's pashut that he has to throw it. Why? Because he has no option. He has no option. He's not able to go ahead and put it on the fire without getting burnt, so he has to throw it. So I don't need a pasuk to tell me that. So when I have the pasuk to tell me that, I must be throwing it from the kevesh to the mizbeach. Rav Papa has a different proof that he's throwing it over ki dam. He's making a hex between the dam, and this is what I told you. Ma dam avir karka mafsikoi. Just like dam, the avir is mafsik when he throws it. Avbasa avir karka mafsikoi. So there must be that there was an avir space between what? The kevesh and the mizbeach. Am Rabbi Yehuda shnei kvashim ketanim hayu yotzim min kevesh. There were two little ramps going out of the kevesh. Rashi has a picture on the bottom. Guys, in the picture on the bottom, you can see it. You had the kevesh gadol, and then you had one going to the southeast, and one going to southwest. Right? That was the small kvashim. Okay. Shnei kvasim ketanim yotzim in a kevesh. Shevehen poinum yisoid. You can turn to the yisoid, l'sleivev, and the yisoivev. umavdalim min hamizbeach malei nima, and they were separate from the mizbeach a hairbreadth. Now the mizbeach, guys, had to be revua. It had to be saviv. So it couldn't be they were connected directly to the mizbeach. So in other words, because if they were, it would take away from the revua, right, guys? Look, you have a square. It goes like this, and if it's connected, you don't have a square. So he's just pointing out that they would point it, and there was a hair's breadth away. Mishum shenemar saviv. It has to be saviv. Rabbi revua. It says revua. V'yitzich lemichte b'saviv. V'yitzich lemichte revua. Because the rachman is saviv around havamina the ogel magel. It could be oval shaped as long as the slave is not touching it. Because the rachman revua, it's got to be square. Because the rachman revua havamina the arich v'kotin. Guys, it could be a rectangle. You know, it's revua. We teach as a square. Revua means four sides. It could be, so I would think that, if it just said revua, I would say it's a rectangle. That what sides are long, sides are short. Because if one is saviv, it should be what? Equidistant. Tanan Hasam. Hakevesh HaMizbeach, Shishim v'shtayim hani, right? There was what? It was 62. Fred Gemana, Hani Shishim v'abba. Havi was 64. Guys, 32 Mizbeach, 32 for the Kevesh. That's 64, but it's only 62. Says the Gemara, Nimsa pareach ama al yisoy v'ama al soivev. It stood over, guys, right? When it went up, it took away two of the amas, one of the soivev, one of the ama, the soid, therefore it's only 62. Amaroy barachama kol kivshei kvasim sholish amas la'ama. All the kvasim are the ascent was for every amma that went up, it was 3 ammas like this, guys. Good. Every amma was one. Every amma in the vertical, you had 3 in the horizontal. That was except the mizbeach. The mizbeach, guys, they didn't make such a steep ascent because they had to schlep up the meat. So there it says, there we have a different cheshbon. It says sholish amish la'ama chutz mikivsha shal mizbeach shehaya sholish amis umechza. Ve'etzba ushlish etzba b'zachrusa. When you measure the 4 etzbois in 4 etzbois in the tefach, so it is 6 tefachim in an amma. So I just made that up. I don't know. There are 4 etzbois in the tefach, guys. There are 24 etzbois in an amma. Now you can measure one of 3 ways, guys. Look, you can measure using the thickness of the thumb, the thickness of the middle finger, or the thickness of the pinky. The largest one is the thumb. So as karusa means, Mar Menachah says it's the thumb. Now the math over here is, guys, you take 32 and divide it by 9. Since it was 9, it was 9. It was 9 amas high to mizbeach, right? Because you not take it was 10 amas including the kronos, but you're not including the kronos. So it was 9 amas high. It's 32. 9 to 32, you get 3. I forgot what the cheshbon was. So you get 3 and 5/9. So the ascent was 3 and 5/9. So an amma is 24 etzbois, 4 etzbois in a tefach, 6 tefach in an amma. There you go. 6 tefach in an amma. I was correct the first time. I made a mistake. Okay. So 3 5/9 ammas. Okay. Okay, good. You have it. Good night. Bez Hashem. Good vach. We'll see you.